I have with me today a guy that I think most of you know. I want everyone to get to know him. He is a police officer, but more importantly, he is a riveting commentator. He's an entrepreneur. He's a family guy and a patriotic American. I want everybody to meet Mike the Cop. Mike, welcome to the show.
Wow, what an introduction. I almost like myself now. It's good.
Well, you should. So, Mike, you have a million fans and followers, a million plus, but you actually started out as a writer, didn't you?
Yeah, I started blogging back in 2014. Yeah,
and that led to kind of you getting some attention, and then you started kind of getting your views out there. And then boom, it just seemed like all of a sudden you were everywhere. Talk about those first things that you posted and where it went from there.
Well, for me, I started writing about some of the experiences that I had as a police officer that were significant and personal to me, and thought, man, I just felt like as I was going through the first few years of being in law enforcement, that I had received so much from the law enforcement community. I viewed my writing sort of in two ways. One was, it was personally cathartic for me to sort of like talk about some of those experiences, but then also to give back and in my way, and in the skills that I could offer back when I wasn't working, to the law enforcement community as a whole, and try to be a voice, at least in the conversation out on the internet, about law enforcement and our experiences as humans. So that's where it started, and that's what I hoped for. And the result was pretty positive, like early on, but that was in a heyday of Facebook, and when you could post and everybody could see it, like if your page had 30,000 people that followed it, 29,000 of them saw your post, like it was just a different time and a different process. And so that led me to meeting Elizabeth, who was also writing at the time. And we joined forces into Humanizing the Badge as a nonprofit. And the video thing for me came about as a result of simply just trying to get more eyes on video as a new thing for social media. Not YouTube so much per se, that had already been established, and that was a video platform. But for Facebook or Instagram or other things, video was very, very new. And so we thought, well, maybe that's a way to get more eyes on what we're doing with Humanizing the Badge. And so that's where the video stuff came from, is sort of like just let's see how it goes.
Let's talk about Humanizing the Badge for a minute, because this is so now we're talking about the post-Ferguson era, where because people think it's bad now, but this didn't just start in 2020. In a post-Ferguson era, post 2014, that whole atmosphere that we were all living and working in was very, very anti-law enforcement. And you guys came up with this initiative called Humanizing the Badge. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, we honestly, we really didn't know what we were doing. I'm not so sure we do yet, but we're fond of saying at this point, like our name is the mission. Like this is what we're trying to do. Primarily for us, that was just a voice on social media, right? Like we're just trying to show people in a place where lots of different opinions are being formulated, especially younger minds. They're being shaped. Younger people aren't getting their information from Fox and CNN. They're just not. They're getting it from Twitter. They're getting it from social media sources. They're getting it from their friends. It's driven by a different way of communicating. And so for us, we literally were just trying to say, how can we be a positive voice communicating some truth about the fact that the people that wear a badge and do this job are human. They're people, not to be objectified on social media. And before people go too far with their criticisms, Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's think objectively, and let's treat each other with respect as people, even where we disagree. And so that's kind of like where that was birthed from. Now we've certainly gone a lot of different directions down that stream and done a lot of different things, but that's the heartbeat of it.
Well, and one of the directions you've gone is humor. You,
Yeah.
and you've taken, so most people would say, well, police work's not that funny. But those of us in the profession, we do find a lot to laugh about, because a lot of times you either got to laugh or you got to cry.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
how was that received when you started introducing some of your funnier videos and funnier commentary?
I think, there's always haters, but overall it was received really well, because I think what I kind of stumbled into by just being myself on the internet, because I don't act, I'm not an actor. I just do my own. I took my real life situations that I was finding myself in and thought, how could I communicate this in a way that people would understand it, And so cops were feeling encouraged at being able to laugh at one of their own who is, they can identify with what I was saying or portraying. And then it was also being communicated to non-cops in a way that sort of could disarm them a little bit. They could laugh at me, like, you can laugh at me or you can laugh at what I'm doing. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. But what you're seeing is that this isn't robotic. This is just this. I can laugh at ourselves. I can laugh at you as an idiot criminal. Like I can laugh at it. We just a portrayal that's very human, and hopefully both of those things. I've been trying to hold that intention, and I know that I fail regularly at trying to do that, but I try to hold both of those audiences together with the content that I put out.
How did your agency and your command staff first react when you're starting to do these social media videos and things like that? Were you well received?
Yeah, I was really fortunate that the public safety administrator in the jurisdiction I was in, and really all of my superiors and the admin and to some degree even city administration, they had already seen me working on humanizing the badge as a labor of love, I guess, as it were. I wasn't making money on it. I was just doing it, right? So they saw that already. So when I decided that I would try to do videos and go to add Mike the Cop as a facet to what I was doing online, that was almost 2 years. So my first blog was like April of 2014. I didn't launch Mike the Cop until February of 2016. So they had already saw what I was doing, and I think what my intention was with it for almost 2 years. So for me to then approach them and say, hey, I've reviewed the policy, I want to go down this video direction. Here's what I'm thinking. They just gave me a lot of rope. And fortunately, I didn't hang myself with it, and by the time that I was potentially hanging myself with it, I had come to a point to where I just didn't care anymore. And there was some administration change, and they didn't like it as much. But at that point, I was ready to sort of be making a transition, and I did leave that department and went part-time at another one. So I was ready to move on. They were probably ready for me to move on at that point, but I really did have a golden window, and I'm so grateful to there's a couple of individuals that I won't name publicly, but they will know who they are if they ever saw this, that really made this possible by not shutting it down when they could have. And so, yeah, I was just really, really fortunate in that.
See, that's outstanding because, here's the thing, and you do provide a little bit of political commentary. You're very confident in your views, and
Mhm.
in those 4 short years since you started Mike the Cop, expressing your own views has become, especially if you're on a certain side, um, has become bizarrely vilified, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, yes and no. As long as your view that you want to express is a view that is the same exact view as the people who don't want you to say another view, then yes, they're very open and tolerant. It's like, um, but or the examples we could talk about the examples all day long, but there's tons of things that as a cop in uniform with my name on it, with the city patch on it, I could get online and say all day long, and they wouldn't care. They would celebrate it. But the minute that what I would say may be something different politically, or ideologically different than what is acceptable in the mainstream of media narratives, both social and mainstream media, then tolerance really takes on a different a different look.
So what has it been like for you, both personally and professionally, to see the profession that you love just horrifically vilified in the last, in about the last year, in 2020? How has that been?
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. Really, at the end of the day, it just sucks, and there's really no great way to. It's just, it's terrible. I literally, as we were logging on for this interview, I got a text from an academy mate of mine, and he says, "Are you interested in being a cop again? We just lost three very experienced veteran cops. They threw in the towel, walked into the chief's office, and gave their resignation letters. And he said there's going to be way more to follow." I mean, we're talking guys with 5 years left. I'm looking at the text: 5 years left, 10 years left, and 7 years left. And they all said, "Enough. I'm done. I'm done. I'm not doing this." And even I made that decision in July. I had gone part-time, and I was fortunate in that the experience and the exposure that I had as Mike the Cop, I was already entrepreneurially minded. Like I had already been a business owner before I became a cop later in life, because I started in my early 30s. So I had already had a decade of living life as a grown man with a family and doing business and stuff like that. So for me, I wanted to say, I can't waste this. And I had already begun to try to leverage that for springboarding myself into other opportunities, some law enforcement related, some not. But for me, I saw how they treated Garrett Rolfe in Atlanta, and they strung him up for doing his job. And I was doing midnights part-time on the weekends because I love policing, because I love doing that job. And so I still was making a sacrifice to do it. But me making a sacrifice is one thing, but asking my family to have me throw all of my businesses away, all of my opportunities away for them and their future and my grandkids' future, it just wasn't worth it anymore, And it sucks to see, other people are recognizing it, and I think it's cyclical. It'll swing back, because there will be a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. You want to pitch that cops are bad, cops are untrained, cops are whatever, and you want to beat that drum when it's not true. Eventually it becomes true, and they will get the kind of cops that they are proclaiming exist, because that's all they'll be able to get. They'll be able to get absolute morons who are willing to do this job for $12 an hour and say the right things to the right people at the right times. And they will find a greater level of corruption than they ever have in law enforcement, because these people will turn on a dime because they're not doing the job for the right reasons. They don't have the same core convictions at the heart of it. And the darkest days for policing are yet ahead, for sure.
In that same vein, how do you think that defunding the police movement is going to play out in the months and years ahead?
Well, I think it's going to be just part of the snow that's on the downhill avalanche. The old cartoons of the snowballs getting bigger and bigger and bigger, till it crushes whatever characters at the bottom. I mean, it's just a piece of the contributing problem that will come back. It's going to come back to haunt us, and it's going to take people. It's going to take enough people being negatively impacted by it, because it's people are. it's tough because people are acting based on information that they believe to be true. And they don't see that how political policing has become, how driven. It's not the cops making the decisions. It's not the chiefs of police making the decisions. It's those that they are electing into office that are making these decisions. And the decisions are driven purely by whatever they feel will retain their power and position that is given to them by a vote. And people just don't see that. And unfortunately, they're going to get what they ask for. And it's instead of being driven by the reality that there are evil people out there. There are people out there that want to hurt you, that want to hurt your family, that want to break into your home and steal your property. They want to damage it. They want to damage you. They don't care if you're hurt in the process. They will harm people and property at all costs to get what they want. They are malevolent human beings that they are broken. There is a switch that is not turned on right in their minds. And they are dangerous human beings, and evil exists. And this is one of the greatest lies that we are fed, is that evil doesn't exist and that it's not as bad as what we think it is. And you and I both know from being in law enforcement, that is the greatest shock when you become a cop. You realize the world is a very evil place, and it is held together by a very few people willing to do very difficult things to keep that evil from impacting most of the people who are not broken, who have the switches turned on the right way. And they're going to find, by this defunding the police movement and hamstringing them and having good people go, it's just not worth my family. It's not worth my family life being disrupted anymore. I'm going to go be a realtor. I'm going to go sell cars. I'm going to go, work at my buddy's business, whatever, because I'm just not doing anymore. And when that happens, the cumulative effect of corruption and policing because of deep identity politics and the defunding the police movement is going to be a 1-2 punch that's going to devastate a lot of communities.
Most people don't understand that your average cop sees more mayhem and tragedy and just human depravity in the first couple of years on the job than most people are ever even aware of in a lifetime. And yet we keep doing it because we believe in it. But now that we are just so continually maligned, I do think, I believe you're right. There's going to be a huge change in the people that are going to be attracted to the profession, the way that we do this job. Mike, how did we get so politicized? When we both took our oath to enforce the law and uphold the Constitution, one of the things that you learn right from the academy is when you're on the job and you've got that badge on, and that patch it's not Betsy's police department on my patch. We're told, we're apolitical. How did we get so politicized?
It could probably be a long answer, but slowly. That's how it happens. I've been told that the boiling frog analogy is actually false, that you can't boil a frog one little piece at a time. So I'm not sure the right analogy, but a ship, I do know that a ship is moved 1 degree at a time. And so it might not seem super noticeable, small shifts. That's how it is. I get the sense that even cops in a lot of ways have underestimated that truth, that small changes over time can lead to very different directions that you're going and arriving in very different places than you ever anticipated. And I think in great deal, we haven't fought against that very hard. Even as cops, we haven't pushed back. And so we've traded a lot of comfort. Here's a raise. Would that make things better? Yeah. $3 or $4 more an hour, we'll vote and we'll leave it be. We'll accept certain things that the city wants to do, city X, Y, or Z, wherever it is in the country, in exchange for more comfort for ourselves. We've been doing the same thing that the American public in general has been doing, which is basically to say, as long as I have an iPhone in one hand and my coffee in the other, and I'm getting it the way I want it, when I want it, the rest doesn't really matter because I feel comfortable. And that's how the politicians that should be despised for a terrible ideology, for a horrible lack of character, shouldn't be allowed to be the ones making these decisions. They don't, but we, as long as we're comfortable, we just don't fight it. We don't resist, because by nature we want to be comfortable, and we've lied to ourselves that it's not going to come back on us. And I hate to sound so pessimistic, because I always believe that we're in control of our own attitudes. But at the same time, overall, this country and policing, because I think they're so interwoven together, it's just, until we learn that lesson, that we're going to have to be uncomfortable for a while to right the ship, then I don't know. But it slowly is how it happened over time.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Mike, where can people find you? Where can they become one of your multi-millions of followers?
MikeTheCop.tv. I mean, if you look up Mike the Cop on social media, you should find me. You might find another cop named Mike. I don't know. Look for my face, I guess. There's a lot of accounts out there asking you to give money for whatever. There's a lot of fake accounts out there too. So, but MikeTheCop.tv will have all the right links. And
Mike, thanks so much for spending time with us. And if you would like more information about the National Police Association, join us at nationalpolice.org.
This year, over 50,000 law enforcement officers have been assaulted while on duty. A vast number of these attacks were filmed and uploaded to social media in the pursuit of likes and attention.
What they want to do is film you instead of like, what can I do to help this officer?
Together, we can change this disturbing trend.
If that individual would have hit the right spot, it could have been it for me. Last time I would have saw my wife, my kids.
I'm Mike Solon. Law enforcement officers need your support. If you see an officer under attack, then follow these simple steps in order to help. 1. Call 911 and give the officer's exact location. 2. Ask the officer if you can assist. If the officer accepts, then do whatever you can do to safely help. 3. If the officer declines, then start filming and be a good witness. It's time to stop filming and start helping.